Then the Browns turned the ball over on downs on the goal line on the next drive. Hey man, kind of looks like the Bengals might actually be able to pull this off. Nope. Welcome to the Jungle, Bengals fans. I'm Kyle Phelps, and it's okay. I didn't really care if we won anyway. 11-6 would have been nice. Actually, you know what? Fuck that. I didn't want to be swept by the Browns. But the Bengals still finished the season 10-7, and we're still champions of the AFC North, baby. Today's video is partially going to be a breakdown and reaction of the game, but it's also going to be a recap of how the seeding battle went in the rest of the AFC, and trust me, it was a doozy. Before we get to that, I'd just like to ask that you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. Really helps my channel out, and it helps you to be the first to know when we put out these awesome recap videos after Bengals games, hopefully 4 more this year. Our game previews that we do with our excellent team of correspondents before the games, power rankings that we put out at the end of each NFL week, and Battle of Ohio podcast clips on the off days. We're also getting to the point where the Bengals season could end any week now, and I've only been doing this channel during the season, so obviously I can't do previews and recaps during the off-season, so the off-season schedule is going to look a bit different, but I've already got some ideas about videos that I'm going to produce during that time, so you're going to want to subscribe to catch that too. So this game was pretty tough to watch. Very few major players on the Bengals roster made a real big impact this week, except for Jamar Chase, who only really played the first 2 drives. And what he did was he managed to reel in 2 passes, just 2 passes, for 26 yards, bringing his final total on the season to 1,455, which breaks the Bengals' all-time receiving yards record, regardless of rookie status or not, that was held by Chad Johnson at 1,440. Unfortunately, Brandon Allen had some pretty bad accuracy issues this week, so despite getting 4 total targets, Jamar Chase did fall 18 yards short of breaking Bill Groman's all-time rookie record that he set in 1960 during a 14-game season. And then he did pass Justin Jefferson's Super Bowl-era record last week, but unfortunately he wasn't quite able to finish off the final record this week. But you know what, that's okay. He broke plenty of records in his rookie season in general, and I really do think we can probably stop rehashing the old Chase versus Sewell debate. Chase was obviously an incredible pick, and I don't know if we'd be in the playoffs without him this year. So this game was just so weird, man. The Bengals' slow starts seem to transcend whoever's actually in the game. I wonder if it's a problem of the Bengals' scheme at this point, and possibly something for Zach Taylor to work on in the offseason, once we're finally done playing. The first 26 minutes of the game were absolutely awful. Brandon Allen couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. And other than those ceremonial catches that Jamar Chase got at the beginning of the game, there was basically nothing to cheer for in the first half. The Bengals defense couldn't stop a runny nose. And the Browns ended up 14-0 after back-to-back touchdown drives at the end of the first quarter and the beginning of the second quarter. So, at this point, it was looking like the Bengals were about to get swept. And blown out again. I know there wasn't much on the line for this game, especially after the Chiefs pulled out the win on Sunday, and after the game, the Titans held on to a victory over the Texans, although that was pretty close too. So there wasn't really any seeding to fight for ultimately. It was really a difference between the number 3 and the number 4 seed all along. But the Browns didn't have anything left to play for either, so this game was really all about pride and testing the depth on both sides. For a little while, that depth looked terrible. Then, Trayvon Henderson returned a fumble for a touchdown just before the half, and then Marcus Bailey tipped an interception to Mike Hilton to ensure that the Bengals went into the half only down by a touchdown, and that felt huge at the time. The defense did a good job of setting the offense up to get a field goal on the next 2 drives, and then suddenly the Bengals are only down 4 points. And it's like, wow, the comeback kind of feels on. Then the Browns turned the ball over on downs on the goal line on the next drive. Hey man, kind of looks like the Bengals might actually be able to pull this off. Nope. After that, the Bengals offense looked completely inept. They punted, and then the defense went right back to being terrible, allowing the Browns another touchdown. Brandon Allen and Chris Evans managed to pull it within 8 on the Bengals' final drive, but after that, they attempted an onside kick, and despite the longest sequence I've ever seen in my life of the refs trying to figure out whether the Bengals recovered the onside kick or the Browns recovered the onside kick, the refs ended up determining that the Browns recovered the kick, and then the Bengals' defense was just completely unable to stop the Browns from getting a first down and running the rest of the clock out. So, here we are. We're 10-7 in the AFC's number 4 seed. Not that it would have mattered that much if we were 11-6. Like I said, the Titans finished off the Texans despite some drama during that game, so the only thing they would have earned with a win is the number 3 seed. Funnily enough, though, there were some crazy results that happened. In particular, the Colts eliminating themselves from the postseason by losing to the Jaguars. The Jaguars. Then, the Steelers held the Ravens off to all but punch their ticket to the postseason, despite the stupid year that they've had. You know, assuming the Raiders and the Chargers didn't tie at the end of their game. They did not, so Mike Tomlin and Ben Roethlisberger are going to get this giant media parade and another feather in their eventual Hall of Fame caps as they somehow pulled this bloated corpse of a Steelers football team to the postseason. The Bengals did get some help with the matchup this week, though. The Patriots managed to lose to the Dolphins, and the Raiders punched their ticket to the playoffs with a win over the Los Angeles Chargers. So, the Bengals will host the Raiders in the wild card round of the playoffs next week. Remember when the Bengals decisively beat those Raiders 32-13 back in Week 11? It was seen as the win that they desperately needed to get back on track after their bye week after suffering humiliating back-to-back losses to the Jets and the Browns. When the Bengals beat the Raiders, Joe Burrow wasn't playing anywhere near the level that he's been playing lately, and Joe Mixon went absolutely off that day. And that game was in Las Vegas. Imagine what the Bengals can do this time around in their own home stadium with this Bengals crowd being that excited for their first home playoff game in years with all this momentum that they have. Also, I wanted to address some of the anxiety that I've been seeing related to the way that this game ended up going. Like, y'all do realize the Bengals were down 11 starters, including Joe fucking Burrow, and a handful of key backups due to being careful with minor injuries and COVID, right? Not to mention some of the guys who did play, like Jamar Chase, made an extremely minimal impact because they only played a handful of snaps. The Bengals are basically just trotting last year's roster out there. The team that's expected to go to the playoffs? That's not this team. This was really just an exhibition game between two teams that didn't really care what happened. Kind of like a late preseason game, except the Browns were actually still playing most of their starters. So, I'm going to borrow a phrase from Aaron Rodgers here. RELAX. There's really nothing to worry about. If anything, the fact that they almost turned the game around at the end, but didn't because Brandon Allen wasn't able to make those big plays when the Bengals needed to, that should be encouraging. Now, in Brandon Allen's defense, he also took care of the football and didn't turn the ball over. So I think Brandon Allen likely could have won that game with the full depth of the Bengals roster behind him. So maybe Brandon Allen's not out there making these big, insane plays, but if he had had Jamar Chase all game, I think that Jamar Chase would have made enough plays for the Bengals to win that game. Joe Burrow, I feel like, could have made all those plays, even though he would have been playing with all the Bengals backups. So it's like, you know, if something, God forbid, were to ever happen to Joe Burrow during the playoffs, I feel like Brandon Allen is good enough to make sure that he can get the ball to playmakers and have the playmakers make the plays. Problem is, all your playmakers were resting this week. So for those Bengals fans who are anxious, I get it. We've been through a lot as Bengals fans over the years, particularly over the last 30. But if you can, just try to enjoy the fact that we're going to the playoffs next week and try to focus on how the real Bengals are going to go play the Raiders this week. After that, it's just about maintaining that momentum. The AFC was such a weird conference this year, and you saw that continuing to play out through Week 18. I mentioned how the Colts eliminated themselves by losing to the Jaguars earlier in this video, but in addition to that, you also saw the Steelers somehow find some way to sneak into the playoffs by beating the Ravens and then taking advantage of the Jaguars beating the Colts, and then miraculously avoiding a tie in the Raiders-Chargers game. I say miraculously because it was actually looking like it was going to happen, and then Brandon Staley took a timeout that seemed like it pissed off Rich Bisaccia, and the Raiders ended up deciding to take a game-winning field goal, when before that it was looking like they might actually just elect to let the time run out. It was hilarious until you realize it means that the world is now going to be subjected to at least one more week of Steeler football! So, next week in the AFC, you're going to see the Bengals hosting the Raiders, the Bills hosting the Patriots, and the Chiefs hosting the Steelers. Based on the way that those teams have been playing lately, I'd imagine you're probably going to get the Bills, Chiefs, and Bengals coming out of that mix. So, you would have the number 1 seeded Titans taking on the number 4 seeded Bengals in the divisional round, and then the number 2 seeded Chiefs hosting the number 3 seeded Bills. From there, I think the path is pretty self-explanatory. The one thing about the number 4 seed is you pretty much know what your path to the Super Bowl is going to be already. The Bengals are going to have to overcome the Raiders this coming week. Keep an eye out for the preview video for that coming on Friday. It's going to be a good one. Then, you'll likely need to beat the Titans in the divisional round unless the New England Patriots upset the Bills or the Steelers upset the Chiefs. Please, God, don't let that happen. The AFC Championship is a bit of a wild card, but whoever gets there is going to need to earn it. And if I had to bet, it's probably going to be the Chiefs. And, we already beat them, so, I don't know. What do you think they could do? But that's all dependent on beating the Raiders this week. I don't see any reason why they can't. But they've also never won a playoff game in my lifetime. The nice thing is, this Bengals team isn't affected by all that losing that me and a lot of other Bengals fans have experienced over the last 30 years. So, I think that, based on what I've seen this year, I trust them to get it done. But, let me know what you guys think. Are you more worried than me about this loss? Are you excited to see what we can do in the playoffs now that we're there? Do you think that the Bengals should have put a lot more emphasis on trying to win this particular game? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below, and I'll feature the best ones in my next recap video. Like this one from Chuckles2340, who says, "Still in shock that we won this game. Who fucking day?" For those who don't know, Chuckles is the one who plays all those correspondence that I have in my preview videos. So, shout out to you, Chuckles. Who fucking day indeed. That's a big reason why I didn't worry at all about what happened this week. We've already seen what the starters can do in these situations. I guarantee you, the Bengals win this game if they had played their best players. Don't forget, the Browns' best players, Myles Garrett and Nick Chubb, and, a few other guys, those guys were still in this game. The only starters they were missing were Baker Mayfield, Ronnie Harrison, and Troy Hill. I don't believe Kareem Hunt played either, but I'm not sure if he counts as a starter. But, that probably hampered them a little bit. But Case Keenum is arguably the best backup quarterback in the NFL. So, I don't think the Browns took much of a step back this week, if any. But that's going to do it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. You can always find more of what I do at KylePhelps92 on Twitter, Facebook.com/ThePhelps, my Bengals coverage at ATBNetwork.com/Cincinnati Bengals, the Battle of Ohio podcast, which is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and right here if you subscribe. But like I said, thanks for watching, everyone. On to the playoffs, baby. I'll leave y'all, as always, with a hoo-day!